This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Maastricht edition live on Facebook. Tonight we are joined by Natalia Westerman from DotnSquare Vintage, who'll be talking to us all about why you should be recycling, reusing, and rediscovering your old clothes. We also have our usual segments of This Day in History, Macco's Dutch, and Tracy's Tidbits. So stay tuned.
Yay! Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Maastricht edition. Here we are again. And
We're back.
We're back. And we do have a little bit of an old theme going on this evening. So as Matt said, our guest this evening is going to be talking vintage. And we are going to be talking a little vintagey ourselves this evening because we're going to be disclosing some old stuff that we've got. And I'm not talking about my husband. But we've all got some little trinkets that are old, and there's a story behind the oldness of them. So we should be discussing that as well. But before we go any further, Matt, you have been away. You've been out. You've been somewhere. What? Tell us. Look.
I didn't recognize him. Look at that suntan.
Freckles and everything.
I've been to Zeeland.
Ooh.
So for our listeners who maybe don't know where Zeeland is because they're actually out of the country, for example, as Peter is, who's just joined us. Hello, Peter. Where is Zeeland?
Zeeland is on the west coast of the Netherlands, so just keep going west until you reach the sea, and that's basically Zeeland.
Excellent.
It's a nice spot.
It's very nice. It's very
You've
beachy.
been to the seaside.
I have, and it was sunny. It was actually sunny.
Lovely. Did you build sandcastles?
Well, we could have done, but no. We did lots of walking, and I collected some shells.
Nice.
Battled against the wind because it was quite windy, but sunny. What else did I do? I ate lots of mussels and fish because, while at the sea, that's what you should do.
Yes. Okay.
And I ate lots of cake because I was on holiday and there's nothing open, so cake it was.
Oh no!
I know.
Cake. Oh, disaster.
Yeah.
But I bet it was nice just to be away and look at something different.
It was nice to be in nature, to get a fresh sea breeze, to wash away Eindhoven. Sorry, Eindhoven. But I've not left the city in months, so it was great to have a new scene to look at and explore. Yeah.
Oh yes, you're preaching to the choir, honey. Preaching to the choir.
And it was all COVID safe too. We hired a car. We stayed in Airbnb. I didn't see anyone.
You can do it with a little foresight.
Well, that's
it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you have to self-cater, but a lot of people do that when they're on holiday anyway. So, under normal circumstances, So, good for you. Excellent. And what are you planning on doing with the seashells that you collected?
I don't know. I thought I'd just have them as decoration or something to remind me of the sea. Holiday.
Oh, how sweet! You're not gonna stick them onto a frame and make a little picture out of them.
No, I only have 5.
Oh, well, that's it. Just have a little bowl with the shells.
I know where they're going. They're going in a drawer. This is it. And then we've all got one of those drawers, haven't we? Where we've got stuff that we've bought when we were on holiday or collected when we were on holiday. And the whole idea is, it's this sentimental little trinket that we've got. And then years later, you open a drawer. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what my old thing is, actually.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So, yes, talking old this evening, you have something old. Those are clogs, by the looks of it.
They are.
So, how old are they?
I have no idea, but they're older than me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, now this is strange then, because you're living in the Netherlands and you've got some clogs that are older than you. So there's a connection there, is there?
Yeah, my grandmother gave me these before I moved here, but they're actually from Belgium. It says Bruges.
Oh.
So it does.
But
Wow.
I don't know where. I don't know where she got them from. I don't think she remembered where they came from either. But I always remember them being around the house, so they're quite old.
Oh.
And still in good nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a little elf or something, I'm sure they'd be quite handy.
Oh, they I think they'd make a great pair of shoes for someone with
Well,
those
they're a bit tight, I think. Not going to be
Well,
easy to...
you've got 42 size shoe, woman. So they're going to be too small for you. But someone who's got teeny
Yes,
tiny.
because of course, if I had a 36 size foot, that would be much better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'd have a whole other discussion. But I like a clog or a klompen, as they're called here. But how funny that they're from Belgium and you're in the Netherlands. There you go.
Yes. And Barry's in the house with us. Barry's in Spain. Hi, Barry.
Hola.
I believe actually that we've got better weather than they have at the moment.
Oh, really?
So yes, although it is a little fresh outside, we do have some nice sunshine. But I think they've got lots of rain there at the moment. So
it's fun when you talk about the rain in Spain, because you never really think they have rain in Spain, but they do get rain.
They do have rain. Yes, yes.
Sending you sunshiny vibes. For us, it's not looking too bad for the coming days, but the rain is on its way to us for next week. So we shouldn't gloat. I'm
sure we'll hear more about that in the news later. But what have you got that's old, Tracy?
I have several items, and given I gathered these within 5 minutes of the show going live, I'm quite impressed, actually. Where should I start? Well, one thing I have, which is actually quite old, and I bought it at a flea market quite some time ago. And this is a camera from the late 1960s, early 1970s. I'm going to show you. And it's called a Regula, and it's a Regula Sprinty, and it works with film. There is film in it, so I'm busy working on taking some pickies. But what's very curious is on the back it says made in Western Germany.
Oh,
so that's it's quite special. So this is, well, I mean, let's say 1970 or something, so it's pretty old. I also have this.
Right.
I have an album, one of these little small ones, of Sean Cassidy.
Oh, look!
Isn't he adorable? From Hardy Boys fame and many other things, I'm sure, but I know him from the Hardy Boys. And this is the song Rock and Roll, which I love, you know. Come on, everybody, come on and get with it. Great song. So this could be an album for Matthew to review in the future. You never know.
Excellent.
And the third thing I found is something that's questionably old, that I bought this in a sort of night market in Shanghai many years ago. And it's actually a little pocket watch. I'll show it to the screen. It's very small. It's got a little...
Oh, that's cute. It's got a butterfly on it.
On the front. And if you click it open, it actually has a little clock inside.
Oh.
I was told that this was an old antique. I'm not fully sure it's fully antique. I have replaced the battery on this, and the workings look quite modern to me, but I bought into the story and it was a pleasant evening. So that's what I have to say.
Takes a battery probably gives you some idea how old it is.
Exactly my thought. But the lady was so nice, a very small little Chinese lady. And there was a whole sort of kind of translation thing going on with our guide. So I like to connect the story with that little
Excellent.
So those are my three things. And Joe, how about you?
I do have a little something. For those of you who've just joined us this evening, and Sue's in the house. Hello, Sue. Lovely to have you with us. We've got an old theme this evening because our guest is going to be talking about her vintage shop later on in the show. So we thought we'd share some bits and pieces that we've got that are old, and apart from my kneecaps that are feeling very old these days, as many of you will know, I left the UK a very, very long time ago, and I have travelled around various different parts of the globe, and there's certain items that I've always taken with me, and I have no idea why, but this jug, which one of these days I'm going to put on Antiques Roadshow, has always been in a box somewhere, wherever I've gone and lived. I remember it being around when I was a kid, and it's just one of these things that got packed up when I left home. And yeah, I've got no idea how it came about, how it ended up in my family. It does say something on the bottom, but I can't even read what that says. It's got, yeah, I don't know, but it's
Who knows?
Yes, I have no idea where it came from. I've got no idea why I've got it. I don't know why I've been carrying it around for all these years, but I've got it. I know it's old. Maybe one day I shall end up on Antiques Roadshow and they'll turn up and go, oh my God, it's a Caris Cliff. And it's worth 30,000 euros or something, which that'll be nice.
That would be nice, isn't it?
But it's useful. I mean, I do use it from time to time as well. So yeah, it's got a couple of knocks on it, but it's not in bad condition actually. Oh, look at me, I'm sounding like an expert. But there you go. So if anybody actually is an expert out there and can look at this and say, oh yes, that's that from 1754, blah blah blah, then let me know. So.
Cool.
Yes, this one. But yes, I've probably got a few other bits and pieces knocking about that are very old. But generally, during my travels around the globe, I've been very good at getting rid of stuff. I do like to have a cull every now and then and get rid of bits and pieces. But yes, why that's stuck around, I have no idea. No idea at all. But yes, if anybody out there has also got some old stuff that you've been hanging on to for years and years and years, then please do let us know. You can send us some messages here underneath us on Facebook. So get your messages in. Let us know what you have got. So, for those of you who watch regularly, you will know it is time for Matt's review. But this week, things are a little bit different. Because under normal circumstances, Tracy and I, on alternate weeks, will give Matt an album from the last 100 years to review. And up until now, he's been very polite about the reviews he's given us. But this week, our review is actually for the three of us. It's not from myself or from Tracy. We have been given an album for the three of us to review from João Neves, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's a Brazilian guitarist. I'm sure you were all watching the show at the time. And he suggested, why don't you listen to some Brazilian music? So I said, yes, of course, give us an album to review. And he did. He gave us Ellis and Tom, which is from 1974, if I remember rightly. We've all sat down and listened to it this week. So, Matt, what did you think of the album?
I thought it was really nice. I listened to it in the car on the way to the beach. Very appropriate. It was... I've recognized some of the songs, actually. I think, like, the first song I recognized. Yeah. I just thought it was very... But I really wish I understood what they were talking about. Like, you can tell sort of, like, the mood or the atmosphere of the song, but then you're like, but what are they talking about? And then I was like, I wasn't going to look it up, but it's a nice mystery. You can imagine what's going on. And they're having a nice time on the beach, or she hates him, why is she talking? That sort of thing. So yeah, I thought it was quite fun. I liked it. Okay.
And is it the sort of music you would normally listen to?
We occasionally listen to some bossa nova, while we're cooking. Nice vibe to it. Relaxed.
Okay. And so, Tracy, what did you think?
Yes. Well, I listened to the album, and the first song, I had quite high hopes, actually. It was a little bit upbeat. It was kind of, it reminded me that I was in a James Bond movie and I was walking into the bar to have a cocktail with him or something. I got this kind of vibe from him. And I thought, this is quite nice. Next dinner party, whenever that happens, I'm going to have this on in the background. But then the album continued, and some of the later songs as we got along were a tad on the depressing side, I found.
A little somber,
A little somber, and I get the emotion, and sometimes you don't need to understand the language. You, like Matthew said, you can feel the sadness and the angst and all of it. But I was like, oh my God. I mean, if I was having this playing during a dinner party, people, they'd be crying in their soup. And then I thought, okay, all hope is lost. I'm going to skip this song. Oh, dear. And then I went to the next one, again, depressing. I was like, God, come on. And then suddenly there was a bright light. There was an upbeat song. Oh, woohoo! Yes. I'm back in the groove again. Do. Feeling kind of funky, that slow groove, kind of very cool. But sadly for me, there were more lows than highs if you put the album together as a whole. More of the upbeat, happy camper stuff, please. Less of the sad, depressing kind of, want to dive off a building type music. So I fear it was probably more of a miss than a hit for me, if I may. Nothing against the fabulous Tom and Ellis and the people of Brazil, but I found maybe if it was an album that had a little bit more of the upbeat stuff, it would have been getting, a 10 from Len almost. But in this case, I found that the down songs, there were a tad too many of them.
Okay, well,
There we are.
I could agree with you there, Tracy. I felt pretty much the same there, actually. There's something about that dirty Latin rhythm that is very appealing, isn't it? You know, when it really does. Yeah. If you
it's
are,
a bit of it's a shoulder movement that you get going.
it is. It just gets the hips going, and you just want to get down and dirty with the rhythm, don't you? I mean, there's just. Oh yes, you do. You do.
It's the same album.
Well, I'm talking about the rhythms in general. Yes. So you know, if you go to a salsa evening or something like that, you know, straight away you just you get into the music and you're just loving it, aren't you? And I think yes, for me also this one there was peaks and troughs, shall we say, peaks and troughs, and. Yeah, I found I got there was like extremes because when you did get the uplifted one, you're like, oh, I'm really liking this, really liking this. But then when it took a somber note, it really dipped quite a lot, didn't it? So it's an acquired taste, I'm sure. João, if you're listening, it's a mixed bag, I would say.
Yes.
I'm being diplomatic. It's a mixed bag. So so that's my take on it. But Matt, you're the one who's going to be scoring this. So Matt, how many Matts did you give it?
I think we should all do it. We should combine it and then do the average, and then that's
An average.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay, Tracy.
Okay, well, as there was a little bit of hit and miss for me, I'm going to go with a 5.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
It's a good thing I'm not doing the album reviews every week. I'm quite tough. And Joe.
I'm going to be with Tracy on this and say 5 as well, actually. So
right, so let's do some maths now, don't we? That's 17.
Yes.
By 3.
So that doesn't
like
really go, does it? So yeah, we'll go with the 6. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so 6 out of 10 for Tom and Ellis there. We shall be posting that on Sunday, so you'll have the chance to actually link up to it if you want to have a listen to it yourself. However, it's my turn to be giving Matt an album to be reviewing. Was it?
It's my turn.
I thought you did the last one.
You did the Tom and Ellis one.
No, I didn't. That was from João.
See,
Okay, that's fine.
off you go. I thought you were using that as your recommender. I missed everything then.
No, that's fine.
No, it is your turn then, because the previous one was my disastrous Eros Ramazzotti that only got a 5 from Matthew. So go ahead, Joe, and I will save this one for next week.
Okay, fair enough. So I am going with somebody that I know you know very well, because everybody knows this man very, very well. He's been around for a very, very long time, and he's still producing good quality music. However, sorry?
Elvis. God, well,
I don't think he's produced any new stuff for quite some time, actually. In fact, I would go with 1977 was the last time that he was able to produce anything new. But no, this guy's... Well, there's the guy who works down the chip shop, of course. But no, this gentleman is he's still around, and he's very famously partnered up with a young man by the name of Bernie Taupin, who has been doing the lyrics for him for the last 300 years. So I picked an album of his from 2001, and this gentleman goes by the name of Reginald Dwight.
Matthew, do you know who this is? Oh,
Yep,
this is a good quiz question, Matthew.
Well, he recently had a film made about him called Rocket Man.
That guy.
Elton John. That guy.
That guy.
And he was called Reginald Dwight. But yes, I'm going with Elton John. For me, I do like Elton John very, very, very much. And his music has, again, had a few peaks and troughs over the years. But this particular album that he brought out in 2001, for me, was he came back on form. I think in the 90s, he kind of dipped a little bit. But this is an excellent album, actually. And this was also around the time when he was kind of feeling, I think, a bit more comfortable about his sexuality and about setting up a family with David and everything. And the lyrics kind of encompass that as well. So for me, it's a really, really good album. So it's called Songs from the West Coast. Came out in 2001, so I shall be very interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay.
So that is your album of the week to review. So there you go. We shall be having this day in history very shortly. Don't forget, of course, Tracy's coming up with the news at hour or just after, and then we should be having our special guest, which is Natalia from Vintage.Square. She's going to be talking about everything old. And old.
Indeed, she's DotnSquare Vintage, but just she won't.
It's vintage.square.com, isn't it? Oh, is it?
DotnSquare Vintage.
DotnSquare. Oh, I do apologise. I got that wrong then. I thought it was DotSquare. Oh dear. Don't mind me. I'm just going to have another cup of tea. I tell you what, it's probably a good time for us to chill down a little bit.
Yes, let's do it. We're all ready.
Okay, so as the whole of Maastricht comes to a grinding halt, and we pause to reflect on the week that we've had, it's time to put the kettle on, put our feet up, chill down, because it's time for This
Day in History!
Oh, it's so soothing listening to you two. So today, it's Thursday, the 15th of April, and on this very day in 1755, Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language is published in London. And I would recommend, if anybody gets the chance, to watch a particular episode of Blackadder, where they are referring to Samuel Johnson and his dictionary. You must watch it. It's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. In 1817, the first American School for the Deaf opens in Hartford, Connecticut. And in 1874, the first Impressionist exhibition opens in Paris, featuring Claude Monet, Edgar Degas, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Pissarro and Morisot. There's a few names for you. 1892, on this very day, General Electric Company, formed by a merger of Thomas Edison's General Electric Company with Thomas Houston Electric Company, that's a lot of electric, was arranged by J.P. Morgan. There's some big names being thrown around here. That was incorporated in New York. This is a little bit of a sad one, actually, but I thought it was worth a mention. It was this day in 1912 that the Titanic sank at 2:27 a.m. off Newfoundland as the band played on, with the loss of between 1,490 and 1,635 people. In 1923, on this very day, insulin becomes generally available for diabetics. And that's something rather important. 1931, a few years later on this day, the first backward walk across America began. Now,
Good grief.
it's the
Backward
first one,
walk.
which suggests to me there's been several since. And I just cannot for the life of me fathom why you would go backwards. I can't fathom why anybody would do anything backwards. I mean,
That's like such a bad neck, constantly looking. Oh, anything there?
Indeed.
yeah.
Unless you had someone with you who you trusted and were saying, "Oh, you're good, keep going," and you just kind of walking into nothing.
But it's not a comfortable feeling, is it?
No.
It's odd.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just plain odd. In 1947, on the 15th of April, operations begin at Radio Netherlands World Radio. And the Franklin National Bank issues its first bank credit card on this date in 1952. Now, here's one. 3 years later, in 1955, on this very day, Ray Kroc opens the first McDonald's fast food restaurant in Illinois. Now, McDonald's. I cannot remember the last time I was in a McDonald's. I mean, really, it's so long ago. What about you guys?
I've not been in a McDonald's for quite some time, but we have ordered in McDonald's, I would say maybe about 2 months ago.
Okay.
They do this. They do a fake chicken burger now, which is quite nice. And that's what I enjoy. Yeah, it's quite nice. Sorry, Matthew. How about you? It was a while ago, I guess.
Yeah, we normally have it when we go to the airport because airport food selection is not great. So we just go, let's have a McDonald's. So obviously I've not been to an airport in over a year. So.
Okay, good way to keep track. Yeah, McDonald's. Oh, funny, when you said the guy's name, I thought you were going to talk about the Crocs shoes for some reason. I don't know.
No,
Anyway.
he was the first to open a McDonald's, and I don't suppose he knew then how big this was going to be, obviously, because,
there's one like in every, some ridiculous statistics, one in every city in the world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But they've had to change things an awful lot in the last few years, of course, because people want more healthier options. So, but in 1983, here's something I didn't know. Tokyo opened a Disneyland. I didn't know Tokyo had a Disneyland.
I've been to Tokyo and I didn't know they had a Disneyland.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you.
Well, honestly, if I'd known it was there, we probably wouldn't have gone anyway, because there's much more to see in Tokyo itself. But I don't know how long, when was it? When
1983.
Okay, well, I have been there more recently than that, so who knew?
Yeah, I know.
I knew that, but I only knew that because there's only like 3 or 4 in the world or something. There's one in Paris, there's one in
They've got 2
Tokyo.
in the States.
There's 2 in America. I think there might be one in China now, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. But it's not somewhere that I would go thinking, I must go to Disneyland. I think Tokyo's probably got a lot more to offer, and our Tracy would know. She's been there. In 1989, on this very day, the then largest lottery in North America was drawn in Illinois, and $69 million in 1989. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
I mean, what do you do with that kind of money? 69 million. I mean, really? I mean, that's it.
What would you do with 69 million?
Well, we've had those conversations, haven't we? Where you sit and go, what would you do if you won the lottery? But no, that's
ridiculous.
It's crazy. You can't get your head around it. And in the same vein, a few years later in 1992, billionaire Leona Helmsley is jailed for tax evasion. Now, this might explain why she was a billionaire. Although, to be honest with you, if I avoided paying tax for most of my life, I still wouldn't be a billionaire. So I don't really know how that works. And finally, in 2010, volcanic ash from the eruption of that Icelandic volcano.
Yay!
Oh, Joe.
You know that volcano in Iceland?
I don't know what you're talking about. No.
It caused the closure of airspace over most of Europe. But it's that volcano in Iceland, Matt. You know the one.
Oh, that one. Oh, how'd you say it again?
Well, oh God, it's no, I'll give up. There is no way I can say that. No way at all. But it's the one in Iceland.
Remember that? Gosh, was that 2010? Did you say?
2010.
Christ, God, time is flying by, people.
It's going way too fast. Right, let's quickly whiz through some birthdays. On this very day, a little known painter by the name of Leonardo da Vinci was born in 1452. You might have heard of him. One of my favourite actresses, one of my favourite people, actually. I don't know because, yes. we're not friends. I think we could be friends. I mean, if she lived next door, I would be really chuffed. But Emma Thompson, the actress, was born on this day in 1951. I mean, really, she just loved, big time. She just lovely. It's her birthday today. 1982, Seth Rogen was born, the Canadian actor and writer. And finally, lovely little Emma Watson was born in 1990, for goodness sake. 1990. She's Hermione from Harry Potter. Oh, she was so tiny at the time when they first started doing those movies. Tiny. But yes, she's celebrating her birthday today. And just quickly, Laura Holland's going to be celebrating her birthday on the 16th. That's tomorrow. Sue says happy birthday. And Serge Dex is going to be celebrating his birthday on the 17th. And Rachel, Francis and Sergey say happy birthday for that day. And happy birthday for anybody else who is celebrating a birthday either today or in the coming week. Hope you're having a lovely day.
And happy birthday to my grandmother, who was her birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Grandma. Lovely. And that was this day in history. There you go.
I love how Matthew claps. Have you noticed? I think he's very kind of...
He's a clapper.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
If there's such a thing, a polite clapper. Maybe that's a t-shirt. I'm a polite clapper.
Right, I'll write it down after the news.
Yes, well, I think it is probably time for the news, isn't it?
Indeed, and we've got Natalia tuned up and ready to go. So we'll get through this and bring her on and get chatting about DotnSquare Vintage.
Excellent. Tracy Taylor with the news.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everyone. It's April 15th, and you're watching the Maastricht edition on Facebook Live. First, a look at your weekend weather, and it's set to stay dry and bright over the coming days with highs of 12 degrees during the day and sunny spells. The temperature at night will remain above freezing. Moving to your news bulletin for tonight, and at the press conference on April 13th, Health Minister Hugo de Jonge outlined a 5-step plan that should see the Netherlands come out of lockdown in time for the summer. The latest plan is currently expected to come into effect on April 28th, but it all depends on the progression of the virus. Denmark has announced that it will stop using the AstraZeneca vaccine and becomes the first country in Europe to do so. The decision is because of suspected rare yet serious side effects and comes despite recommendations from the World Health Organization to keep using the vaccine. There have been reports of suspect text messages coming from the DigiD telling recipients they are due a refund and asking them to click on the link provided. Please note that the DigiD would never send such text messages. If you receive a notification, do not click the link and please contact the Fraud Help Desk. The Netherlands carries the rather undesirable title of being one of 5 European Union front-runners that caused deforestation in South America and Southeast Asia between 2007 and 2015. According to the World Wildlife Fund, the Netherlands, along with Germany, Italy, Spain and the United Kingdom, were responsible for 80% of deforestation caused by EU imports of raw materials. US President Joe Biden has declared that it is time for American troops to come home from Afghanistan. President Biden is looking to bring a close to 20 years of US military involvement there, even though critics warn that peace is not assured. President Biden has set a goal of withdrawing all 2,500 US troops remaining in Afghanistan no later than September 11th. Moving to local news, and Maastricht University Hospital will be receiving more than €1 million from the Dutch Cancer Society to finance 2 studies. One study will look at whether antidepressants can help fight leukemia, and the second study will investigate fatigue in people who have colon cancer. The Muziekgieterij will be the setting for a musical program of Limburg artists on Friday, May 14th. In a cafe-like setting and accompanied by a live orchestra, 12 artists will perform after being tested for COVID-19 beforehand. It is possible to pay to receive the link to watch the live stream. And finally, tonight, and in response to surging demand for climate friendly slow travel, a Dutch startup company is launching a new night train service which will connect several popular European cities. From April 2022, the European Sleeper will link Brussels and Prague with stops in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, and other cities along the way. Trains are often more hassle-free than flying as they depart from city centres, and you can sleep while being transported to wake up in a new city. And that's it for tonight. For more local news, you can follow RTV News in English on Facebook and Instagram. If you are a local business, be sure to check out the Support Your Local Business South Limburg Facebook page, a joint initiative between #Maastricht and the Maastricht Edition. And if you want to discover events, concerts, and cultural activities going on in Maastricht and the surrounding areas, head on over to the website of our partner, Maastrichter.com, to check out their awesome calendar of events. And don't forget that you can always find us on the Maastricht Edition Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on Redbubble, and on Instagram. For all the details, check out the maastrichtedition.nl.
Lovely stuff. Well done, Tracy. Very nice indeed. Chante's in the house. She's saying greetings from Amsterdam. She's with us. We've got Anne who's watching as well. Chante says that even though she's American, she's not a big fan of McDonald's.
Oh, right. Yeah, we shouldn't assume that just, all Americans love McDonald's.
No, we shouldn't.
Although I must say, when I was in New York a few years ago, it was the first time in my life that I saw people eating McDonald's at 7 a.m. in the morning. It was really very bizarre. They have all those breakfast deals and everything. I was like, oh my God, having McDonald's at 7 a.m. I love New York. But anyway, I digress. Let's get our guest on.
Well, just before we get our guest on, I just wanted to run something by you because, of course, we are talking about something old today. And so somebody asked me a question.
Oh, right. Oh, okay, I'll do it then. Joe,
yeah.
What do you know this week that you didn't know last week?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that, Tracy, because I've learned something that also fits in with the theme of the show. If an alien civilization 250 million light years away was looking at Earth right now, they would be seeing dinosaurs.
Oh.
Wow.
That's how long the light has taken to get there. Isn't
wow.
that bizarre?
That blows my mind.
Wow. It does, doesn't it?
Ooh, we should totally have someone on to chat about aliens and UFOs one week. That'd be cool.
Well, I'd like to talk about dinosaurs, so maybe we can combine them.
Yes, I'll make a note of it.
Dinosaurs in space. That would be good.
Dinosaurs in space.
Very specific guest.
That's
yes,
an interesting guess. Yeah. It's a bit specific, that one.
Right, so let's get Natalie on. Natalia, sorry. Natalia is waiting in the wings there, I believe. She is hanging out. Natalia, are you there? Rumour has it she is around. Natalia, I think I saw her. She came in and she went off again.
There we go.
There she is. Good evening, Natalia.
How are you?
We're great. How are you?
Okay.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. We are, as for most of the show, we've been talking about old stuff, and you're here to talk about vintage. But before we start talking about your business, which is in the business of old stuff, maybe you could just give us a little bit of background about yourself, who you are, where you're from, etc. Maybe starting from when you're about 3 years old.
Well, I'm Natalia, a Westerman. I'm actually originally from Groningen, up north, as far away as possible in the Netherlands. And well, I have a twin brother, so I grew up with him, wearing actually the same clothing. It's actually, I think, a little bit worse for my brother than for me. In any case, yeah.
You're wearing a dress.
Yeah, well, almost like a really bright colored, like how you call it, cardigan with like pink, light blue and yellow. And when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, well, I'm glad I was the girl. Yeah, so definitely some old school stuff already, because my father is quite the quite the second-hand thrifter. But yeah, so I grew up in Groningen, and I did my bachelor's in Wageningen. But for my master, I actually came to Maastricht. So I really ended up here for my studies, and I stayed because I started being an entrepreneur by accident. That's how it goes. I never really thought of becoming an entrepreneur. It just happened. So yeah, and I really rolled into the vintage business. I already had good ties with that because I worked at a startup, Vino Kilo, when it was still a really young business. And I actually restarted my vintage love here, and yeah, eventually set up a shop selling here from out city center Maastricht. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Now, before we go any further, let's just clarify something here.
Yeah.
What makes something vintage?
Yes. Okay, this is a good question because yeah, you can. I think it's a hard definition. It's vintage is actually the French word for really like a certain age you're from. Like it's of course, yeah, it's come from the wine, of course, but yeah, you would say vintage starts from like the 90s, or actually, yeah, we are moving forward in time, so that sort of time is like shifting. But we would say 90s or older. So I would say beginning 90s or older. But the big but from my shop, I take vintage in a like broad sense of the word. So I also sell like urban street style clothing. So that's actually just secondhand, but it's really hip and trendy. So I call it vintage because I have a vintage shop, but
Yeah.
it's quite the broad definition. Yeah. So I understand your question.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I honestly thought you were going to say stuff from the 1950s, 1960s, 1990s.
Yeah, well, I think you can, yeah, you can classify it like retro, or you have like the 60s, but of course we eventually are still moving in time, so you can already say the 80s. And I mean, we already see the almost late 90s, beginning of 2000s are coming back already. So I'm like, okay, I could have already, I reused my stuff from like the end of late 90s already. So yeah, we're already reusing stuff from only 20 years ago. Yeah,
That's true. The cycle of fashion, it just goes around and around, and things that were very cool in the 70s, not so cool in the 90s, are cool again today.
Yeah, I know. I'm really scared. Like the low rise jeans are coming back, and you know when everybody was cycling with like this the thong on above the.
Oh no, muffin tops are going to be coming back again. Yeah. I remember those. Oh dear. That's going to put me off for dinner a little bit. Okay, so there's obviously a business here then for people wanting to buy old clothes. So how did you actually get onto this idea? I mean, it's all very well saying, oh, I love wearing old clothes. Other people are going to like it, surely, but maybe not. How did you know there was actually a business, a viable business here?
Well, from my purse, like, I mean, there are already like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different vintage shops here in the city. So they already, I didn't create something totally new, but how I experienced it myself, that there was a really big ask for vintage, was that because I had a side project that I was making tote bags out of old clothing. And I really got my hands on a really good, like a bunch of high waist jeans that were like a little bit like size 32, size 33 and stuff. And I put them on Sharing is Caring Maastricht Facebook because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to cut these up. Let's give it a go on Sharing is Caring. And oh my God, like I got like a shitstorm of messages from girls. They were like, oh my God, I need those pants. And I was like, well, so that's how I started. And then like sort of, I thought, well, this is a great idea. I should do this more. So I started from out my room. So I had like a clothing rack in my room, and then I got more people coming. I started a Facebook group that started growing, and then I had people having personal shopping moments. So I already had this concept before Corona. So they came and booked at my spots in the evening, and they would shop something. And I was already registered then. But then I was like, well, okay, this is getting out of hand. I need to maybe make this a little bit more professional. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a real name. And then, of course, Corona happened. So I was like, well, am I gonna pursue this or not? And I was like, yes, we're gonna pursue this. So and here we are. Thank God I still have a shop. So it's like
yes, you're still going strong, and I know you guys are also, you're like a drop-off point for Homerr as well, which is handy. So people are coming in to pick up and drop off. And you've recently started these personal shopping sessions where folks can come by and have a cup of coffee and a biscuit, bring a friend, and have like a half an hour exploring the lovely things you have on offer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's actually like the first week or first 2 weeks of opening. So we are only open on Friday and Saturday for the shopping moments. And there were people who were dying to shop. It was great. For me, that was great. But they were like buying a bunch and they were just going crazy. Wow. And then I noticed a little bit of a dip. So I was like, ships. Was that like the first like ecstatic people? Yeah. And it's like all gone. But now actually it's picking up again. And the Homerr point, and we're now also Mondial Relay point. So yes. 2 shippings that are connected to Vinted. That's growing really well because, of course, the people who are bringing those packages and picking up the packages are people who actually shop or sell secondhand on the platform Vinted. Mm-hmm. So those are the people I really want in my shop. And it's actually working because I notice people then are like, oh my God, can I shop now? I'm like, sorry, we have rules. But book now. I mean, on Friday and Saturday. So I sometimes get like from my helpers from Maastricht who are then in the shop doing that. I can come back to that later. They're like, oh, there's someone who wants to shop. I'm like, they can scan the QR code and then we'll be there on Friday and Saturday. So yeah, nice. It's actually going good. I'm really glad about that.
Well, there's plenty of people, including our Tracy, who as soon as you say vintage, get very excited. Oh, I have to go and look. It's something about that vintage clothing that gets a lot of people excited. However, there is another side to this as well. There's an ethical side to this, isn't there? Because, one of the buzzwords now is about being environmentally friendly, and the fashion industry is being criticised heavily at the moment because of the carbon emissions it's producing and such like. So from that perspective, vintage has got to be the way to go, surely.
Definitely secondhand. I would not even proclaim that like you should only shop vintage. I would say just also shop secondhand. That's why I'm actually also, I really want to offer a broader range of like good looking clothing. And I also want to really pull people in that actually would not normally walk into a secondhand vintage shop because they think it's not their style or not done. But then I want them to feel like, oh my God, this is a cool Nike sweater. And then I'm like, yeah, that's secondhand. And they were like, oh, well, okay, that's cool. And they would buy it and they would then wear secondhand. So getting that mindset there, that you can also really shop secondhand and look great and not have to feel that it's all like muffy, stuffy, and you already smell it.
That's the thing. It's pre-loved fashion or pre-loved clothing, and a lot of the time, the stuff that you find in a vintage shop or secondhand store, it might even still have a tag on. It's practically brand new. It's been worn once to a wedding or something, and then put in a wardrobe for years and years. And there's something about these older clothes. I mean, the fit is often very good. The quality, the type of fabric, and everything. It's definitely a way to go. And like you mentioned, Natalia, platforms like Vinted, I mean, this has become huge across parts of Europe as well. So there's definitely the market there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just touching on that point about quality, Tracy, because of course with fast fashion these days, the turnover of they call it seasons, but it's not even seasons anymore, is it? I mean, it's like every 2 weeks there is a new collection of clothes in your high street shops. And I think half the time you buy these items, and after about 3 or 4 washes, they're no good anymore anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. That's really what you see a difference with the quality of the fabrics, actually from the decennia before, because you have cotton and then you have really more, the good fabrics that last. And that's definitely not the case when you buy at Bershka or at Zara or I don't know, and you buy the cheap stuff, it's really, really not the same. I actually was not thinking about it, but I can actually show you my sweater.
Oh.
This is like vintage from my mother, like koala. She's from Australia. And this is like, I don't know, this is like the 80s, I think. And I'm still wearing her sweaters, like, and they're so good quality. It's like, I'm wearing them still. So
who doesn't like a singing and dancing koala? I mean, honestly.
I have like three. I have like three. No, but yeah, I totally agree. The quality is going like rapidly decreasing, and also the like. Just to give you a number, the percentage of like vintage, like what they would receive vintage. So it's more, a little bit stricter than my definition, but anyway, that's actually decreasing. So it's still 3% of all the secondhand clothing, and that's actually even also reducing because the quality is like going rapidly downhill. So the reuse possibility of clothing is also going rapidly downhill. Yeah, that's really, so that's why I say just buy quality, so you leave all the synthetic stuff behind.
No, absolutely, they do say that as well. It's the advice, better to invest in a quality item that's going to last you for years instead of buying 10 t-shirts for 10 euros and then, you know, like you say, wash them once and then you're throwing them away because they've just kind of disintegrated in the machine. So there's definitely,
what do you think the future is, Natalia? What do you imagine is going to happen in the future? Is there going to be a change in balance between people buying vintage or secondhand clothes and the less new clothes, or do you think there's going to be always going to be more of a niche thing to buy vintage?
Ooh, I think there's definitely still a growing target group, like that. It's really growing. I mean, the generations like even after me, they're getting way more conscious about the environment and about what they buy. So I think there's definitely grounds to really to cover way more. I am not sure if the fast fashion part is ever gonna go totally away, and I think it's still a wait and see a little bit on how radical people are gonna change their minds about things. And I think still there's definitely way more people gonna get.
People have had a year to think about this, of course, because in the past year where we've not been able to go and shop whenever we wanted to, you know, people have had to just deal with the clothes that they've got, or they could shop online. But of course, you know, that's it doesn't suit everybody. People do like to be in shops, feel stuff, try stuff on and such stuff. So I think surely there's an element of people that have actually taken stock in the last year and gone, you know what? I don't need to be buying any more clothes. I've gone a whole year without buying any clothes. So I'm fine.
I hope that mentality actually stays. I really wonder what this whole corona crisis will bring with certain mindsets that actually hopefully last. But I'm really, there's definitely a part of the people that will still buy a lot. And hopefully, I hope that will always buy more secondhand and that the turnover will happen on Vinted. So it gets a quicker a second owner. That would be great already. And that we have way more, indeed, again, quality stuff there. But I would say the group will grow, but I think still like 50% will still buy fast fashion. I think it's
Well, it's been lovely to have you on the show, Natalia. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We wish you lots of luck with your shop. Tell everybody exactly where it is, how they can find you.
Yeah, actually, my shop is in the Sporenstraat 22. That's actually near Amorsplein. Where all the other vintage shops are. I have actually 2 shout outs because I also sell local sustainable products from Maastricht creators here. If you have any other product you would say that should be in my shop, please hit me up. And for also the Maastricht edition listeners of today, I have a special offer of 5% discount when you name drop, of course, this session. So,
excellent.
Come in.
Oh, lovely.
And of course, choose Homerr or choose DotnSquare Vintage Service Point when you buy on Vinted, and you choose Homerr or you choose Mondial Relay. So thank you again.
Oh, it's brilliant. Awesome. And just before you go, one of your neighbours has just said hello, Petra from Euler. She has just tuned in, and she says hello. So lovely to have Petra in the house. Thank you again, Natalia. It's been absolutely lovely to have you on. Hope to see you again sometime soon. Yeah. And as soon as we can all pile into your shop, we'll be there for sure. I know our Tracy will.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thanks ever so much, now. Take care. Bye. Oh, she was lovely.
Great, lovely to see another young entrepreneur in the city and
absolutely.
Supporting
local businesses. It really surprises me that there's 5 shops now. She said
yes,
5?
But there's quite a lot.
For quite a small city, that's
yeah, absolutely. It's very positive.
It shows there's an appetite for this, and that's, I think, in places like Amsterdam, there's even more and more. I mean, there's a huge number of vintage stores and secondhand and retro vintage. There's so many options. But she's in a lovely spot there on the Sporenstraat, just on the Amorsplein little circle there. So a good location. So it's all happening on the Sporenstraat.
It is all happening because our Petra is in the house from Euler. She's going to be probably coming on in the not too distant future with a little announcement about her new endeavour. So yes, it's all happening there. Katie's with us as well. Hello, Katie. Nice to have you with us this evening. Just in time for Matt Goes Dutch.
Ooh, good timing.
Yes. So last week I told you a bit about the tulip craze, the tulpenmania. So I didn't quite finish it off because I found lots of interesting information. So I like to split it up. Mm-hmm. So this week I'm going to tell you about the economic consequences of this mania about tulips. So if you weren't listening last week or you've forgotten, it's okay. I will quickly recap. So the tulips came from Turkey via Vienna in 1500. They were grown and developed by Carolus Clusius in Leiden University at the Botanical Garden, and quickly became a status symbol because they were so colourful, and there were 4 different types, each more rare than the other. So the most rare was the Bizaran, and they had streaks of colour on a coloured background. You can still find similar bulbs today. And they became so expensive because they were so rare, and it took so long, up to 12 years, to develop each bulb and grow it before it became a flower, that it could cost 5 times the value of a house at the time. So in Amsterdam, Krachten House, one of those houses you still see in Amsterdam. So yeah, they were very expensive, and it sort of became a bit crazy. So that's where we left off. And so tulips, if you've ever grown a tulip, they flower between April and May for about a week. So that meant that between June and September, the bulbs go dormant and could be dug up and sold and traded. So that's what happened. That also meant that the market was limited because you couldn't do it all year round. You had to sort of wait until the bulb was gone to sleep, basically, and then you could sell it off. So that meant that the Dutch created a new type of product, a financial product, which still exists today, is still part of the financial services market, and it's called a futures contract. So what they would do is the bulb traders would go to the producer of bulbs, the bulb grower, I'm not sure what that is, gardener, something, and they would say, look, I want to buy your bulbs, but they're like, oh, sorry, you can't at the moment because they're not dormant, I can't give you them, they'll die. So they go, okay, well, I will buy it from you in the future. So they give them the money then, and they have ownership of that product, even though they don't actually have it. And then you could still sell that product. So this futures contract, you don't actually have the thing, it's still in the ground, but you could sell it to someone else. And that's what sort of started the real mania on the tulips, because you could sell it as an investment. So lots more people became involved who were not really so interested in the status symbol of owning a tulip. It was more about sort of the money that could be made from selling it on to someone else for more money than you bought it for. So the Dutch were actually the first people to create futures contracts and sort of form the basis for financial markets that we still have today. So the rarer bulb varieties, the Bizaran, could sell for hundreds of guilders, which is the old Dutch currency, pre-euro, by 1634. And it meant that people could sell these bulbs without ever actually owning them. And they could be sold up to 10 times in one day. So 10 different people could buy it each time be, well, hopefully more expensive than the last person who bought it. So it was called the wind handle, the wind trade, because no one actually owned the bulb. So you're sort of buying air, you're buying nothing really. But it also meant that fortunes could be earned and lost overnight. And of course, you all know how this sort of crazy situation ends. At some point, the bubble bursts, and it all goes horribly, at least for some people. So in 1636, the tulip became the fourth largest export for the Netherlands after gin, herring, and cheese, things which are still very important to Dutch culture.
They certainly are.
So number 4 was the tulip. And by 1637, the trade reached its peak. So this was when those crazy figures about the bulbs being worth 5 times the value of a house or a full wage for one person in the whole year. So this is when they were selling day after day, more than once a day, up to 10 times. And then eventually in 1637 in Haarlem, which is a city north of Amsterdam, there was a plague. There was bubonic plague. And this meant that people didn't turn up to the usual auction where these futures contracts on bulbs were being sold. And because no one turned up, none of them were sold, which burst the bubble. So suddenly the whole trade collapsed, and the tulip trade collapsed entirely. But there's lots of speculation about what the consequences of that were. Whether it was economic collapse of the whole country is debated. People think that actually only really affected a very small number of people who were directly involved in the trade, because ordinary people didn't really have any connection to it. They didn't buy them. The people who were involved were very sort of limited, very small number of people. So the biggest consequence wasn't actually economic, it was more sort of philosophical and moral, because people were like, how could you spend so much money on a bulb, one little tiny bulb that's sort of just a flower? What does that say about how we sort of calculate value of things? Especially when you think about the Dutch are very sort of Puritans, like Puritan Christians. And so those are sort of religious and philosophical questions about how you should spend your money and how these things need to be controlled, and sort of whether it was moral to spend so much money on something that's actually, is that really worth that much? So there's lots of historical debate about it, and it's a really interesting topic. And a Dutch person told me, my Dutch teacher told me, that there's a very interesting film about this called Tulip Mania, I think, or something. So if you're interested, it's in English, it's an English film. If you want to find out more, maybe you can watch the film.
Well, do you know what? I think there's a connection between what we've been talking about this evening and clothing, because again, you know, considering how long ago that was, and people were questioning the moral side of it or the ethical side of it in those days, we still have that same thing now. It just goes to show we're still spending lots of money. I mean, some clothing, of course, is so expensive, and it's just a skirt or it's just a jacket, you know. So but it's very interesting stuff. Very interesting. We're running out of time. We're coming towards the end of the show. I have to do this very quickly, because I did announce on social media that I would bring this subject up. You have to ask me another question very, very quickly before we go on to Tracy.
Joe, what else did you learn this week that you didn't know last week?
Well, here's one for you. Butt plugs were once used as a cure for asthma.
Oh, God, I'm sorry I asked.
Butt plugs were used as a cure for asthma. As an asthmatic person, I'm telling you, I'm going to stick with my inhaler. There is no way.
I should think that's probably good advice, dear.
Tracy, do you have any titty bitties for us to take us out?
Very quick titty bitty, something a little different this week. I would like to kind of bring the attention to an app that's currently available, and it's called Too Good To Go. And it's an app that you can find for free in the App Store. And the concept is that it offers special boxes and bags of bad food that's going to be thrown away, and you can buy like a bag of bad food for €5 or €10 or whatever. You get a little mix of everything else. The app is, you can download it and you can check every day to see what available food is in participating places in your area is. In Maastricht, for example, the Co-op is involved, the Plus supermarket and Jan Linders. There's also other bread stores and bakers and stuff, and you simply download the app, you enter your location, and then you kind of search and it will tell you what options are available for that particular day. And for example, if I wanted to buy something from the Co-op, I would, flag that in the morning, and then I would pop by this evening at a certain time to pick up my bag of bad goodies. But apparently it's really quite a big thing, because of course it avoids food wastage.
Yes,
and it's often stuff that's maybe going off the next day, so they can't keep it in the shop, or it's a potato that's not perfectly rounded and it's got like little bits coming out of it, but it's perfectly fine, people, you can eat this. So I thought this was a very good thing, and particularly Maastricht is a kind of student city, so it could be that this is very helpful for some folks who are watching the budget and stuff. So too good to go. Check it out online. I have downloaded the app myself. It's very user friendly.
Yes, I have the app too.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good. But you do have to get in early, because they have X amount of boxes, and you have to put in your order early, otherwise you're going to be out of luck. Before we do finish this evening, Petra from Euler, as I said, she's with us this evening. For those of you who know Petra from the Euler store, she closed down her little shop last year. She has now she's reopening in a semi-official opening on Saturday. So here's an exclusive for you, folks. There is a semi-official opening happening on Saturday. It's still in the same street in Sporenstraat. It's just the other side of the street, and it's a much bigger shop. She's gone mega, huge, much bigger shop. So get yourselves down there on Saturday, or make an appointment to go down there on Saturday, and you can go and check out the new shop. But we'll have more news about that over the coming weeks. That's it, folks. We're at the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been lovely having everybody here. Thank you to Natalia from Vintage for joining us this evening, and we shall see you again next Thursday. Have a lovely week, whatever it is that you're doing. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks ever so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye.